Hello, this is R Rats with Team 4545 League, analyzing the game between Mitas and Justin L. This was played in Team Event 53 in the 6th round, and let's have a look. Okay, we've seen this many times. And I was just waiting for this particular move to show up in a video because I can send you off on another tangent, something to prepare yourself with, okay? I'm aware of a line. I don't know it all that well. I'll just show you the basic concepts of it. You'll have to do your work on your own, of course, because I don't show you everything. I make you look, which will teach you. You'll learn something from me explaining to you, but most of your learning will come from what you discover. History on this line goes back, that I'm going to show you, goes back to the 1980s. I was deeply involved with correspondence chess, and I had a couple of friends that were of 2000, 2100 ELO strength that were playing a lot of correspondence chess too, and one of them had uncovered all this incredible analysis on this little gambit that black will play, and I want to show it to you. Now, white castled in this position, but a common move for white to play is c3. And I don't remember all the tricks and nuances of this opening. I'm just going to show you the basics. Like I say, you'll have to do your research. But for black, it's a great way to play for a win, and for white, it's a good way to lose if you're not careful. So it just means that white is going to have to prepare a little bit more if he's going to play the Ruy Lopez. And the move is, here I'll show it to you, is d5. And just for a moment, let's look at what it does. For the moment, white's queenside is just a mess. It's not moving. Black's isn't far behind, but at least the black bishop has a diagonal. The black queen has a diagonal. Yeah, it's true. The white queen has a diagonal too. But anyway, the concept is that black's going to make a little gambit here and get some development, and white can get into a lot of trouble real quick. Now, I don't remember all the analysis, but let's just take a look at a couple moves. Okay, candidate moves. E takes d5. Well, then black just plays queen takes d5. And you can see from here that black has a free game of development, and white's not quite ready for d4. Okay, so you could castle, and maybe it's better to put the knight here. I don't know. Maybe you can go to f6. You'll have to look this up, as I said. But white just can't quite get away with d4 yet. Black has too much pressure there, okay? And let's see. Now you can't take it yet, but it's now an isolated pawn. You can't take it because of the pin, but that's all right. There's a target here. Let's see, maybe you better not take it yet. Maybe, but like I said, I don't remember all the tricks. But queen d5 is a fine move. I'll just go back and I'll show you the other key line that I remember. I just happen to remember one line, that's it. Okay, so d5. The other line is what happens on knight takes. And I think, but I'm not sure, there's some side lines that are similar to, if you're familiar with the Schliemann defense, where white will end up taking on c6, and then black plays bishop d7 and pins that knight. Like I say, there's a lot to it. Maybe it's I don't remember. You just have to do some research on it. But I think this was the key move where black starts conducting a little counterattack. Okay, then this is one line knight takes, and now we take here. Now it's true that white has a discovery here, but he's got to be careful with it. Where's he gonna go? If he takes on the pawn on a7 or goes to e5 or d4, black is going to push c6, and this bishop is loose, and this rook is loose when it all comes down to it, okay? And the rook falls with check. So I think the main line is just to go rook f1 and avoid all that. And then black plays bishop d7, and he's going to get his piece back. And play with his d4 maybe. And I think you pretty much have to go back to d6, and e5 shouldn't be a problem because I can't do that. That's a white knight. I want to play that trick. Knight takes e5. But anyway, I don't remember it all. I think you can get away with b takes c6 here. and then if pawn takes, then you take this guy, and if the bishop retreats, then you just retreat your bishop, and it's a reasonable game for black. This might be the best white can get out of it, but look at what's happened. He's certainly not playing a normal Ruy Lopez system. He's lost his castling privilege. The white queen side remains entirely undeveloped, and black should be able to castle king side here in a move or two. Where's the bishop going to go? Well, might have to go back to f8 and redeploy at some point, but anyway, it's got a lot to it. And there's a lot of ways for black to get these really quick attacks, and I wish I could remember some of them, but I don't. But I know it's a very viable defense, and if black's not, or white is careful, he's in trouble. Okay, so as it turns out, it kind of follows the path of what I was just showing. We're back in the main line continuation now, except the difference is that black no longer has the d5 option. So maybe, do that a lot. Okay, let's get forward. Okay, wait, let's back up. Okay, so when white castled, a good question is, does black have d5 in this position? And you'll have to look that up. So, like I say, bishop c5 combined with this d5 move is really, really, really something to take note of. So what's white going to do here? Again, we have the candidate moves, knight takes and pawn takes, and maybe this is some of the positions where, let's see, if knight takes, I guess black doesn't have this resource anymore, queen g5, but there's a slight change in the position because white hasn't played c3. He substituted castling. So I'm not sure if this is the position where you can get away with this, and then you got to be careful where you're going to put the queen. Maybe you can go all the way to h4 here. I don't know. Yeah, and white doesn't have this trick that he would in the other lines because the knight's not guarded on d4. White couldn't do, or black couldn't do some of these things and allow this discovery check where the knight goes back to d4 check because it was protected by a pawn on c3. So what else can white do here? He can go back into this line. Now, of course, since c3 is open, the tempo on the queen is there, but black's probably okay here. Now, where is he going to go with the queen? You got to be careful. There might be more tricks on this, right? Okay, just for instance, if it was white's move, he can take on e4 and then pin the queen. Well, maybe he can even do it in this position, right? Well, black has some resources. He just continues his development. The entire white queen side is not developed, and black's doing fine here. Okay, so one more thing. If knight c3, we just find the best square for the queen, and I'm not sure where it is. If it could be e6, I'm not sure. Could be that it goes to even back to d8, and black should be okay. I don't know. That's your job to find this out. But if you're looking for a great opening to play for black and defending against Lopez, I'm telling you, this is it. But you're going to have to do your burn the midnight oil and dig this up. And don't worry if this system is refuted. Most players aren't going to know this opening. Be prepared for it. You should get at least no worse than the disadvantage of the first move if you play it careful. Okay, and then but the advantage is you're going to have such an open position for your pieces that you're going to get rapid development. You're going to get castled, and you're taking white out of what he's accustomed to, and I think the latter is the main point, because when white's not playing something he's comfortable with, then and you're playing something you're comfortable with, that's worth a lot right there to you, because he's having to sink and swim on his own. And if you have a reasonable position because he didn't know the opening and couldn't play the best line, you're in great shape for a win with black. Okay, we're going to go back to the game, and now, like I said, the d5 push by black is not there because he took one move, and he could have gone there in one move, but he didn't. And now it takes on some of the connotations of a regular Ruy Lopez, except the bishop is going to c4. So, in a way, it's almost like this is a slow gioco piano with where black is given a free tempo of pawn a6. And if you look at this for a moment, it seems like black's got everything he wants out of this position, even though he didn't try the risky gambit I mentioned. Look at black's game for a moment. Okay, he's ready for an f5 break while white's ready for a d4 break. Now I'm not saying black's going to do this, but he could do it. Okay, this bishop has a great diagonal, and this bishop's still on the board, which is developed, has a great diagonal. This is anytime you're attacking your opponent's f7 or f2 square, your bishop is doing fine. Now counter that, the white bishop is doing great, but there's one drawback, positional drawback in the white game, and here it is right here. That bishop is not yet developed, and that gives white just a little bit of a disadvantage here. Black is completely equalized, and it's his move, and he's got the chances here. So let's take a look at what he does. Bishop g4, and here I believe white panicked and started misplaying the position and just got the bad game. Okay, so let's consider some candidate moves. I've already mentioned white didn't play it right. Let's consider these. What could we do? Is there a trick on f7? You know, we look for little tactical motives to take advantage of the fact that this bishop is unguarded. Well, unfortunately, there isn't. If you analyze, bishop takes f7 check, king takes f7. When you have knight g5 check, the queen just takes it, and knight takes e5 check. This knight takes it, and the bishop's guarded, and you've just given up two pieces for two pawns. And even if the pawn was on d6 or d3 instead of d2, white still can't do that. Let me illustrate. Okay, what I have to do is I have to make it white's move in this position. I'm just going to burn a move here, rook b8, right? Now we have the trick. Now you say, oh good, after the king moves, I take his bishop. Well, unfortunately, black has this little trick of his own, and it's called taking here. And after white grabs the queen, then black in turn grabs the queen, and we take this bishop, and look, white's a piece down. Okay, so be aware of that trick. I'm sure most of you have seen it, but maybe if you didn't see it, then I certainly helped you. Okay, so candidate moves. What are white's candidate moves? Well, a lot of times in a Lopez we want to play rook e1, but we're not really in a Lopez anymore. We're more in a piano, right? So what's bishop g4 designed to do in the Ruy Lopez? It's to prevent d4. Okay, they say in the Lopez that bishop g4 doesn't make any sense unless white has played d4. Well, here white hasn't played d4. So if we play d4, we're walking right into this pin, because there's how many guys are on d4 for black? Let's count them. 1, 2, 3. 3 guys, and this knight is not really securing d4. So I'm just going to show you the move, and you'll see the point. He did play d4, so I don't think that was the right choice, because he's just going to give up a pawn without anything to show for it. So what are our other candidate moves? Well, we can't move the bishop, and we can't move the rook. We don't want to necessarily put the knight on a3, but look at it. Okay, the idea behind this is we're going to redeploy the knight to c2, to e3, and then we're eyeballing d5 and f5, right? Well, what happens if black just takes it? You know, sometimes we're afraid to put a knight on those squares because they get doubled. Your pawns get doubled. White's got the bishop here. Maybe it's okay. He's covered. He's covering d4 and b4, so that may not be a bad choice to allow this. And of course, this bishop is still out of play. These pawns are weak, but how's black going to exploit them? White can maybe then get d4 in because there's less pressure on d4, so let's burn a move for black. Okay, let's attack a pawn, right? Makes sense. Okay, so now we have to stop and defend the pawn if we want to play d4. So we do it this way, and rook e1 is less likely because, or less likely to be a bad move because we've gotten rid of the attacker of f2. So Now it's black's moves. Let's just develop. Okay, always develop. Okay, so now white gets his d4 in, but he may have to accept a second set of double pawns here because of the pressure. So, for instance, if black takes here, if we take with the queen, we're going to drop a pawn. We may not have enough compensation for it. And what's the evaluation here? White's got all these double pawns, but he's got the two bishops. So it's unclear. It's certainly worth trying out. So putting a knight on a3 isn't all that bad just by this illustration. White's got two open files to attack on. He's got the bishop pair. And if the position opens up a little bit more, those bishops may just spring to life. Who has the attacking chances here? Well, white does. Black would like to get a knight on f4, but why don't we just take it off, and then the pawn on f4 is the target, and then we've got this center pawn majority we could maybe open up some lines with. So moves like knight a3, I said, well, a lot of you might be reluctant to play it, but it's not all that bad of a move, and maybe you can utilize that this idea in one of your games. So knight a3 is a candidate move. I don't know if b4 is the best. It's just going to drop the bishop back, and then we have to stop and find a move all over again. But okay, fine. Then maybe we play knight a3 here. Okay, so b4 may not be all that bad, but we definitely can't play d4. Now the game would continue. Well, we have to be careful. This is hanging, and f2 is a little loose, so it's a little risky to play rook e1, but maybe we can get away with it. Let's just try it. Alright, pardon me. Okay, black castles, and then white still has to develop this guy. This knight on a3 is a little out of play, but now we're bringing our plan a little closer to fruition. Although black's getting a lot of play here. Now we can go ahead and play this, but this is loose. We're going to have to deal with that. And then maybe d3, and black could double some pawns again, but that shouldn't be bad. And this game's about even. So this was a reasonable candidate move to play b4, but then the other candidate move would be just simply d3. And here we're saying what we're going to do is we're just going to continue normal. You're not going to get into d4. If you want to play d5, you'll have to prepare it, and you've spent a tempo doing it because you already went to d6 with the pawn. And in this case, e4 is covered, f2 is pretty safe, so play might continue, knight f6, and then white has some choices. He can play bishop e3 and say, well, hey, I'll accept the double pawns, but I'm going to get the half open rook file or f file, and that may happen. Or we can go about our business with knight bd2. We kind of got to be a little careful with this. The idea is rook e1 and then knight f1. And then once the knight's on f1, it eyeballs both e3 and g3. And we still got these problem pieces here that have to get in the game, but they'll get there. They always do, even if they do lag behind. But the game is even, and any one of those choices would give white a playable game. But unfortunately, d4 just is gambling a pawn, and white doesn't have enough to show for it, and that's the whole problem. And now you get this little tempo on the queen, but that's solved by developing a piece, right? Okay, and here white's saying, go ahead, take my pawn. I will develop a piece when I do. The concept is fine, except that white just doesn't have enough tempos for it. If you count tempos, both sides have 4 pieces developed. In white's case, he has a queen where black has the knight developed, and white has castle, black hasn't, but it is black's move. So really all white has is the advantage of the first move here. That's all, because should black castle or play queen d7, then he's caught up in development, and white's down a pawn with only this to show for it. Let's just look back and see what else could he do. Can he take here? Well, then we run into this. We just run into a direct loss of the pawn. Bishop takes, Ooh, maybe not. Maybe not. No, we take with the knight. Yeah, and keep the pin. Okay, never mind. I was looking at f7 for a second. So anyway, queen d3, and black just goes ahead and takes the knight, and this is actually a very good move. You might not think so at first because you're parting with a bishop for a knight, but what happens is black just gets this wonderful knight posted, knight on e5, and it's going to be very, very difficult for white to get rid of that knight, and mainly because he doesn't have a pawn capable of doing it. You'll see what I mean in a moment. White can't get rid of that knight. Now the threat, you got to be careful, of f4 just runs into discovered check problems, right? And after these pawns disappear, the pin will remain, and white's going to have a little bit of trouble getting rid of that knight, like I say. And h6 is fine. Just kick that guy out and then gain a little space. Black can do this because he's the aggressor here. Let's compare the pieces. These bishops are about even. Even though this diagonal is shut, it's not going to stay shut. It's going to open up. And then white still has a knight at home, which isn't doing him any good. And this bishop is now driven a little bit out of play. And black's next move is just great. He plays knight gf6, or e7, g6. And what black's saying is, if you take my knight on e5, I'm going to replace it with another knight. Plus, not only is f4 illegal because of, or not illegal, it will be illegal because of the pin, but black has further decided to anchor that knight in on e5 with that pawn on g5. That pawn on g5 is just really, really securing that knight in on e5 nicely, and we'll see how handy this piece comes here in a few minutes. Okay, so white's pretty much resigned to losing the pawn, so he develops his rook. Because technically the rook's developed on f1, but here it's on going on a half open file, so that's okay. And now black just goes ahead and decides now's the time to take the pawn. I'm going to take it now, and white does finally have a tempo for the pawn, but you need 3 tempos for a pawn. So for instance, if black plays queen d7, well, I'll just show it here, just for example, and then white develops this rook, black castles. The difference is white's up white's up 2.5 tempos, so it's close, but not enough because neither of these rooks are developed. But black's position is solid enough that it doesn't matter that he's down a couple tempos. Okay, because white just has no targets here. Okay, so let's see what goes on. c6, and this is fine. This just keeps white out of well, he's already out of b5, but keeps him out of d5 because white needs to get this knight in play, and f5 would be a great square for the knight. I mean, you can just see that. Wouldn't we love to have this knight on f5? It's going to do a lot for us, but it's not possible because it's going to take forever to get there. How are we going to get there? By way of d1. Well, white stopped and occupied that file, okay, or that square, so it's going to have to move again. And so it's white several moves from getting this done, and black has plenty of time to generate his own activity in the meantime. So bishop b3 keeps the pressure on f7, and white could have left that bishop there because black's not going to trade off that wonderful knight. White could have just left that bishop, I think. I think maybe now is the time for rook ac1 and hope he takes it. But anyway, he didn't. So now queen e7, and black's almost caught up in development. He's got this great position, and he's a pawn ahead. And this doesn't really do much. It's basically what it does is it drives black's king to safety. Okay, if anything, if we're lucky, black will castle kingside here, and then it's an even. Well, it's not really even, but the balance stays even. Okay. So queen h5 says, go castle queenside and attack me. That's what it says. Okay? And obviously what white would like to do is attack black's queenside now, but it's not that easy. Need to get pawn rollers going, and white's only down to 2 of them. Remember, he's given up a pawn, so that's one less pawn to throw at the black queenside. So, and right now these minor pieces are a little clumsy. This one's stopping this pawn from running. You don't have a rook on the b file, you put it on the d file, Black's got this weakness on d6 secure. We know that pawns on d6 are not always weak. Look how many times in the Sicilian defense Black voluntarily accepts this. Okay, so let's move on. And there comes the c1. This is fine. But, this is just another great move by Black. He's willing to trade off his one of his knights and open up the file. And I think White looks like White has to take. Where does he put the queen? Everything's covered. Knight covers, knight covers, knight covers, knight covers. Ooh, White's lucky his queen didn't get hung out to dry here. But anyway, he has the resource. Bishop takes, and this opens up this file for Black. So here's Black already got his kingside attack rolling, and White doesn't have any kind of open lines to speak of. And White happily picks up his pawn, and this is an interesting choice to go to c7. The natural move is b8, but I think Black is saying, my position is so good I can keep him close to the center just in case you defend this middle game, and you won't get at him there. And actually, King c7 actually helped him win the game, as you'll see in a couple moves. Had he gone into b8, he probably would have won a different way, but anyway, let's move on. So White's regained his pawn, but again, we've seen there's some serious drawbacks with the White position here. We can't get rid of this knight on e5, and it's just doing a number on activity over this knight on c3. That knight's not doing anything. Even if it goes to a4, it'll just drive the bishop back to a7, and now what? This bishop is on a decent diagonal, but f7 is covered. It's anchored in by that knight on f5, and as I said earlier, we'll see why that knight is anchored in on e5. It's even more apparent. White would like to kick it out with f4, but there's two drawbacks with that. Number one, the queen is on f4, and number two, the king is on the diagonal. So White's a long way from kicking that knight out, and Black meanwhile has got open lines that he's going to start attacking on, and that's exactly what starts happening. And I'm pretty convinced at this point Black is winning. White just doesn't have any good moves, and right now there's a threat to put a rook on g4 with further gain of time. Where's the queen go? Well, we'll find a spot for it, but then the other rook doubles up and threats start coming. So for instance, let's just burn a move. I'm going to burn a move here and show you. Okay, rook g4. What does White go? You can't go to d2 with the queen. There's a tactic. Do you see it? There it is. I could have made you stop the video, but stuff like this you need to see right away. Okay, so White's in serious trouble here, and his queen may get trapped. Where is it going to go? F5? We'll just swing the other rook over, and I think we're threatening to trap it. So Black's got serious winning chances here if he's not entirely winning. The other candidate moves they can be a little loose. King h1. At some point, f2 is going to fall or be under attack. Now, for instance, on rook g4, now we can go to d2. But like I say, more things are happening here. Black's just getting this great attack, and White's got to deal with g2. And if we push f3, well, maybe this knight's going to do some damage in here. It's just a wonderful game to have for Black. Okay, so and the other candidate move, you try king f1. Well, you're still chasing that queen out, and now this queen's coming in here, and there's all kinds of attacking chances for Black here. Got to be careful of f2, even though it's covered. You've got to be careful of h2, but the Black piece is just swarming, and I'm not going to analyze everything out. We'll let you figure it out. So White played this move, which I can understand. He doesn't want the rook going to g4, but Black doesn't need to go there. His position is strong enough, and really there's just no defense for White here. And I think it was this point that White just went into panic mode and gave up the world. And here I explained earlier, maybe the king to c7 helped win the game, because White probably wouldn't have played that if the king was on b8. But let's just back up a second. What else does White do here? The rook g8 is coming with threats down here, none of these guys are really helping. They're not helping at all. They're not helping the defense. And so you can figure out the rest here. It should be pretty easily. But I've spent a lot of time here. I want to wrap this up. Okay. But unfortunately, he's just given up a piece, and now makes another sacrifice, and it really didn't matter. He doesn't have enough. And now he's given up a whole rook for this position. And like I say, there's just not enough compensation here. And Black just carefully consolidates. He secures the knight on e5 and keeps his queen's diagonal open from e7 to h4, and then now it gives up another bit of material. So I'll just kind of play out the last few moves. It's a queen and a bishop against a queen and two rooks just have no chance. And although he can take on, I guess he could take on g7 or g6, or can he? Let's see, what does Black do? Yeah, he did. Okay, never mind. But okay, Black's just up enough wood here that White really doesn't have a chance. Let's see. According to pawn count, he's only down a pawn. White has a 3-on-1 majority, but b2 looks in trouble if the queens are traded. Let's see what happens. Okay, he took here. Now White's got 3 connected pass pawns. Wow. But unfortunately, Black's got some activity here. White, point count, White's okay, but position count, he's not. Those pawns they're passed, but they're not going to move. If they move, they expose the king. And meanwhile, the black pawns will start advancing here. And ooh, that just threw away the queen. Well, desperate times call for desperate measures. The alternative is just to resign. It's just to grind out. Takes, and then here we resign. But let's just look at this one more time. Really, what can White do? Well, first off, his G pawn is pinned, so he can't move it. The threat that what Black has is just to, his king is pretty safe from checks. The threat is just to start shoving pawns, right? What's White going to do? He's got to play a move. So I don't know where you want to move. Eighth. You might drop this pawn on b2. So let's try queen h8. Okay. Maybe we can generate something. If Black plays b5, then White has queen a8. Well, maybe he doesn't. You got to be careful here. There's mating problems down here. So really, what's going to happen? White has to keep his queen somewhere near his back rank, and I'm not even sure if he can do that. Let's see. Where's the queen go? Just put on the back rank. Okay. Now you're not threatening c5, so we'll just push here, right? Or we could play rook e2, and we're on this and on that. We're on g2 and f and b2, right? So point count is not that bad, but position count, it's horrible. Oh well, this went extra long, but that's how I want him now. I'm gonna. If the position the game calls for more discussion, I'm going to take it. I'm really into making these longer, and because I'm out to help you play chess better. So I want to thank you for your time, and I'll be making another video soon. Take care.